Hello, my beautiful lovelies. I hope you're ready for day 2 of stories. So, hi. Different lighting. It's odd, but different lighting. So, today we're starting. Hi, Jima! Hi. So, today. There we go. Today we are starting with Jeffrey Hawk, the clown. For anybody who did not see yesterday's, and for anybody who is back from yesterday's, to remind you, one picture will be of the killer themselves, and the other picture will be of them kind of possessed by Ashphoria. So, Jeffrey Hawk, the clown. Jeffrey Hawk was born into a wealthy family, but from an early age he displayed disturbing tendencies. As a child, he showed little empathy and developed an obsession with control and possession. He took pleasure in collecting things, not out of appreciation, but out of need, and to own and to dominate. As he grew, his obsessions became darker. Sorry, the music just got wonky there for a sec. His obsessions became darker. Jeffrey developed a fixation on people, particularly women. He began abducting and murdering them, keeping souvenirs from his victims. Among these trophies were severed fingers, which he preserved as part of his collection, each one representing control, a reminder that he had taken something from someone else, permanently. To avoid suspicion, he lived a transient lifestyle, traveling with a circus. The environment allowed him to blend in, moving from place to place without drawing attention. His role as a clown provided a disguise, one that hid his true nature behind exaggerated expressions and performances. But behind the makeup, however, he continued killing. His methods were cruel and methodical. He derived satisfaction not just from the act of murder, but from the ritual surrounding it. The stalking, the capture, the act of taking something from his victim and keeping it forever. Over time, his body began to reflect his lifestyle. He became overweight, sluggish, and increasingly dependent on chemicals and toxins that he used to sustain himself. Despite this, his compulsion to killing never slowed, never ended. Eventually, his path led him into the entity's realm. The fog claimed him. Within the realm, Jeffrey Hawk became the clown, a grotesque figure who uses chemicals and concoctions to disorient and weaken his victims. His bottles release intoxicating gases, impairing those who inhale it, making them easier to catch and control. Jeffrey does not kill out of rage or necessity. He kills to collect. And in the entity's realm, his collection is endless. Rin Yamaoka, the spirit. Rin was the daughter of a struggling family in Japan. Her father, a once proud man, had become bitter and unstable after repeated failures and financial hardship. The weight of his frustration built over time, turning into resentment towards his own family. Rin, however, remained determined. She worked hard in school, tried to build a better future for herself, hoping to rise again, above the circumstances that surrounded her. One day, after returning home, Rin found her father in a violent rage. Consumed by anger and a sense of failure, he lashed out. What began as an argument escalated into brutality. He attacked her. In a fit of uncontrolled violence, Rin's father stabbed her repeatedly, shattering her body. Bones broke, blood soaked into the floor, and her life was taken by the very person meant to protect her. Her mother was also killed in the same act, but Rin's story did not end with her death. Her spirit remained, fueled by rage, pain, and betrayal. The trauma of her final moments fractured her soul, leaving her in a state between life and death. Aware, suffering, unable to rest. Thank you, Gma. Hydrate, I have coffee. Snack, I have Cheetos. I'll finish reading after I'm done chewing. There we go. The entity was drawn to that suffering. It claimed her. Within the fog, Rin Yamaoka became the spirit, a broken, vengeful presence. Her body appeared shattered and fragmented, reflecting the violence that killed her. She can phase between realities, disappearing and reappearing unpredictably, mirroring her unstable existence between the physical world and the spiritual one. Her movements are erratic, her form distorted, and her anger constant. Rin was a victim of her father's rage. In the entity's realm, that rage lives on, endless, unresolved, unleashed on anyone who crosses her path. The Legion. Frank, Julie, Susie, Joey. The Legion is not a single killer, but a group of 4 teenagers. Frank Morrison, Julie Casento, Susie Love, and Joey. Bound by friendship, boredom, and a growing detachment from circumstances, they formed a tight-knit group in a town called Ormond. Frank was the leader, manipulative, impulsive, and eager to push boundaries. Julie was fiercely loyal to him, willing to follow his lead without question. Joey was more reserved, but went along with the group, while Susie was the most timid, often hesitant but desperate to belong somewhere. Together, they embraced rebellion. They skipped school, committed petty crimes, broke into places for the thrill of it. What started as harmless delinquency gradually escalated. Under Frank's influence, the group began seeking more intense experiences, something that would make them feel alive. One night, they broke into a local store. While inside, they encountered a janitor who had come to investigate the noise. Panic set in, but instead of fleeing, Frank attacked him. In a sudden, brutal act, he stabbed the man. The others froze, then Frank pressured them to join in. One by one, they participated, some out of fear, others out of loyalty. The act bound them together in a way nobody else could, and nothing else could as well. They had crossed a line, and there was no going back. Afterwards, they covered up the crime, trying to return to normal life, but the weight of what they had done lingered. The thrill they once chased had been replaced by something darker, a shared secret that tied them together through guilt and violence. It wasn't long before the entity took notice. A group that did not need tragedy or manipulation to become killers. Only influence, pressure, and the desire to belong. The fog claimed them. Within the realm, they became the Legion, moving with speed and aggression, attacking in bursts of chaotic violence. Their coordinated assaults reflect their group's mentality, while their masks conceal their identities, reducing them to a single, unidentified force. They are not driven by ideology or survival. They kill because they choose to. And together, they will keep choosing it. Adiris. The Plague. Where is Plague? Why is Plague down here? Okay, Plague is not where Plague is supposed to be. Sorry about this, guys. Adiris is not where she's supposed to be. Yeah, dumpster fire, Gmo. We know it. Don't we know it? Adiris. The Plague. Adiris was a devoted high priestess in ancient Babylon. Yes, Gmo, she is from Babylonian times. Serving the gods with unwavering faith. She was known for her beauty, her voice, her deep commitment to ritual and worship. Her entire life was devoted to serving her people and honoring the divine. When a terrible plague struck the city, chaos and fear spread rapidly. The sick were cast out, the dying abandoned, and society began to collapse under the weight of the disease. Adiris did not run away. Instead, she chose to care for the afflicted. She tended to the sick, comforted the dying, and prayed constantly for divine intervention. She believed it was her sacred duty to remain with her people, no matter the cost. Eventually, she herself became infected. Her body began to deteriorate, wrecked by the illness, vomiting blood, and growing weaker day by day. Despite her suffering, she refused to abandon her faith. Even as others fled or lost hope, Adiris continued her rituals, believing the gods had purpose for her pain. When sickness reached its peak, Adiris left the city, either exiled or by her own will, or to seek protection, or seeking to protect others from what she carried. She wandered, alone and dying, still praying for meaning for her suffering. The gods never answered her. But something else did. The entity claimed her. Within the fog, Adiris became the plague, a towering, corrupted priestess whose body is ravaged by disease. She wields a ceremonial censer and spreads infection to those around her, forcing others to suffer just as she did. Her ability to vomit bile reflects the very illness that consumed her, turning her devotion into a weapon. Adiris never lost faith. Even in the entity's realm, she continues her rituals, but now her suffering is eternal, and her blessings are spread by the plague to all those who cross her path. Danny Johnson, Ghostface. Danny Johnson was a journalist living in the United States, known for his ability to blend into the background and uncover stories that others couldn't. He moved frequently from city to city, taking on new identities, and working for small newspapers. To everyone around him, he appeared unremarkable, quiet, observant, and forgettable. That was exactly how he wanted it. Behind his career, Danny lived a double life as a serial killer. He stalked his victims carefully, studying their routines, watching them from a distance, learning their habits. He chose his targets methodically, ensuring that he could get close without raising suspicion. He didn't kill impulsively. He planned. Danny would toy with his victims before killing them, making phone calls, leaving subtle signs, creating a sense of paranoia. He enjoyed the fear he created, the feeling of control as his victims realized they were being watched. After each murder, Danny would document the crime. Using his position as a journalist, he reported on the killings, sometimes even being the one to discover the story. This allowed him to shape the narrative, control the information, and relive the experience through his writing. He wore a mask to conceal his identity, a blank, expressionless face that allowed him to become someone else entirely while hunting. The mask was not just a disguise, but a symbol of his detachment. Eventually, one of his investigations led him too far. While pursuing a story, Danny disappeared, the entity claiming him. Within the fog, he became the Ghostface, a patient, calculating killer who stalks his victims from the shadows. His ability to remain unseen reflects his real-world methods, allowing him to watch and wait before striking. He thrives on fear, building tension before delivering the final blow. Danny Johnson does not rush. He observes. He studies. And when the moment is right, he makes himself known. Demogorgon. The Demogorgon. The Demogorgon is a creature from the Upside Down, a dark parallel dimension connected to the town of Hawkins, Indiana. Unlike many of the entity's killers, the Demogorgon was not a human before entering the fog. It is a predatory creature driven primarily by instinct, hunger, and the urge to hunt. The creature first emerged in Hawkins after the gate between the real world and the Upside Down was open. It became one of the most dangerous predators encountered by the people of Hawkins, stalking its prey through the darkness, and using its heightened senses to locate them. The Demogorgon possesses a terrifying physical form. Its face can open into a flower-like maw lined with teeth, allowing it to attack and consume its victims. It has tremendous speed and strength, making it incredibly dangerous, even without supernatural abilities. The creature is also capable of traveling between dimensions through openings connected to the Upside Down from the human world. The ability made it difficult to contain, the ability to appear seamlessly out of nowhere. Eventually, the Demogorgon became involved in the conflict surrounding Hawkins and the Upside Down. After being captured and imprisoned by the Russians, it was kept as part of their experimentation with creatures from the other dimension. Then, the entity reached from beyond its own realm. The Demogorgon was taken from its world and brought into the fog. There, it became another predator in the entity's endless collection. The entity did not need to corrupt or manipulate the Demogorgon into becoming a killer. It simply gave the creature somewhere new to hunt. Within the fog, the Demogorgon continues to behave as it always has, tracking prey, tearing through obstacles, and attacking anything unfortunate enough to cross its path. It has no hatred, no revenge, no desire for power. It simply hunts. And in the entity's realm, there is always something to be hunted. Kazan Yamaoka, the Oni. Kazan Yamaoka was born into the prestigious Yamaoka family during the Japan's Sengoku period. He was the son of a samurai and grew up surrounded by traditions of weapons, honor, warriors, and loyalty. From an early age, Kazan was taught that a samurai's duty was absolute. He became a skilled warrior and earned a reputation for his strength and discipline, but Kazan was also deeply proud. He believed that the samurai class had been a sacred responsibility to maintain order, and that those who abandoned their duties were dishonorable. As Kazan grew older, he became increasingly disgusted by samurai who accepted bribes, abused their authority, or abandoned their principles. Thank you for the snack and hydrate! He began hunting those so-called dishonorable warriors. He became known as Oni Yamaoka, a terrifying figure who punished samurai he believed to betray the warrior code. Kazan's father eventually confronted him about his actions. He warned his son that Kazan's obsession with honor had become dangerous and that killing the other samurai was not justice. Kazan refused to listen. He believed he was the only one willing to uphold the traditions that others had abandoned. Eventually, his father ordered him to stop. Kazan could not accept this. In his eyes, his father had betrayed the very same principles he had taught him. Kazan challenged him, and in the confrontation, it ended with Kazan killing his own father. But rather than feeling victorious, Kazan was consumed by shame and rage. His obsession with honor had led him to murder the man who taught him what honor really meant. Still, Kazan refused to admit he was wrong. He continued his campaign against those he considered dishonorable, eventually becoming a feared killer. He slaughtered peasants, samurai, and anyone he had believed who had failed to live according to his strict ideals. The more he killed, the less human he was. I'm fine. Eventually, Kazan was defeated and left gravely wounded. As he lay dying, his mind remained consumed by anger. He refused to accept death or acknowledge the consequences of his actions until the entity came. The fog claimed Kazan Yamaoka and transformed the warrior's rage into something monstrous. He became the Oni. Within the fog, Kazan's fury manifests physically. I will have to fix my lighting after this story. Hi. His fury manifests physically. His body becomes larger and more demonic, and his rage grants him terrifying strength and speed. He wields a massive kibono and feeds upon the blood of those he hunts, becoming more powerful as his anger grows. Kazana spent his life believing that dishonor was the greatest sin, yet his own obsession with honor ultimately destroyed everything he had sworn to protect. Now, in the entity's realm, the Oni continues his endless hunt, searching for those he deems unworthy, forever trapped in the rage that consumed him. Okay. Give me one quick second, guys. We will move on to the next story in a moment. I'm gonna fix my lighting because that is bright as all hell. So give me one quick second. I'm gonna leave the music going. I'm gonna mute my microphone while I do this. There we go. Lighting has been fixed. Back we come. Alrighty. Caleb Quinn, the Death Slinger. Caleb Quinn was born in the American West during the 19th century. He was a brilliant inventor and engineer, but he was also deeply angry with the world around him. Caleb had little respect for the wealthy industrialists who exploited workers while getting richer from their suffering. Oh, Jesus. Hello, Dak. His intelligence eventually caught the attention of Henry Bayshore, a wealthy businessman who had an opportunity to use Caleb's talents for his own benefits. Bayshore hired Caleb to design specialized equipment for use in the mining industry. Caleb created innovative machinery that made mining more efficient and safer for workers, but Bayshore wanted something else. He wanted weapons. Caleb designed several devices for him, including a harpoon-like gun capable of firing a metal projectile attached to a chain. Bayshore promised Caleb the inventions would be used to protect workers and hold criminals accountable. Eventually, Caleb discovered the truth. Bayshore manipulated him. The weapons were being used to control the workers, to suppress anyone who challenged the company. Caleb's inventions had become instruments of oppression. He was furious. He turned against Bayshore. Caleb used his knowledge and engineering skills to create increasingly brutal weapons, especially developed the Redeemer, a modified rifle capable of firing a chained harpoon into a person's body, dragging them towards him. Caleb began hunting men responsible for exploiting him and the others. But revenge consumed him. His hatred became entirely indistinguishable from the cruelty he had once despised. Caleb became a bounty hunter, tracking down criminals and fugitives with his harpoon gun. He particularly took pleasure in hunting those he believed deserved punishment. Eventually, Caleb's enemies caught up with him. He was captured and tortured brutally, left hanging in a prison cell for days. He survived, but the experience only deepened his hatred. Once he was released, Caleb sought revenge on those who betrayed him and tortured him. He found them, and he killed them. But Caleb's story does not end there. No. The entity had been watching. The fog claimed Caleb Quinn, drawing him away from the world he had spent his life fighting against. Within the entity's realm, Caleb became the Deathslinger. His Redeemer became his signature weapon, allowing him to impale survivors with a harpoon and drag them towards him. His mechanical genius, anger, and obsession with punishment became all weapons in the entity's endless trials. Caleb had once wanted for justice for those who were exploited, but revenge changed him, and eventually the man who wanted to punish monsters became one himself. I have to see how many I've done so far. Give me a second, guys. I have to do my count on my list that I have on my phone. Okay, I still have 3 stories. Okay. Ah! This is not where it should be either. Executioner. Oops, there we go. Pyramid Head, the Executioner. Pyramid Head is a mysterious being whose true origins and name were never explicitly given. Unlike many of the entity's killers, he was not an ordinary human who was later transformed into a monster. He originated from the nightmare world of Silent Hill, where he served as an executioner. Long before he encountered James Sutherland, Pyramid Head was connected to the ancient traditions of Silent Hill. The town had a history of brutal executions, and its executioners wore notorious, enormous red hoods over their heads and carried massive weapons and were tasked with carrying out punishment upon those deemed guilty. Pyramid Head embraced that role. He manifested punishment, guilt, and desire for retribution. When James Sutherland entered Silent Hill, Pyramid Head appeared as a terrifying figure who relentlessly pursued him. James initially had no understanding of why the creature was hunting him, but Pyramid Head was connected to James's guilt. James had killed his wife, Mary, and buried the truth beneath denial and repression. His journey through Silent Hill forced him to confront what he had done. Pyramid Head became the physical embodiment of punishment for James that he believed he deserved. He repeatedly hunted James, killing other creatures, forcing James to confront his own guilt. He was not simply a monster chasing a victim. He was a manifestation of James's need to be punished. Eventually, once James accepted the truth about Mary's death, Pyramid Head's purpose was fulfilled. The executioner no longer had anyone left to punish, so Pyramid Head turned his blade upon himself. But another force was watching. The entity reached into the nightmares surrounding Silent Hill and claimed the executioner. Within the fog, Pyramid Head embraced the executioner. Unlike the other killers, he does not appear to be motivated by personal hatred, revenge, or even the desire to kill. He simply performs his function. He punishes. His enormous great knife represents the burden of punishment that he carries. He can drag it across the ground, leaving trails of torment behind him, and his cages and hooks reflect judgment and suffering associated with his existence. Pyramid Head does not need to understand the survivors. He does not need to know their crimes. Within the entity's realm, everything is condemned. And the executioner is there to deliver the sentence. Talbot Grimm's The Blight. Yeah, I really messed this up. Where's the Blight? Aha, here he is. Talbot Grimm's was a brilliant Scottish chemist whose intelligence earned him recognition at a young age. He was particularly interested in medicine and chemistry, believing that science could be used to improve human life. His work eventually brought him to the attention of wealthy and powerful people who wanted to use his knowledge for their own purpose. During the First World War, Talbot worked as a chemist and researcher. He developed medicines and chemical treatments intended to save lives and help soldiers survive the horrors of war. But Talbot's work became increasingly dangerous. He became obsessed with finding a way to push the human body beyond its natural limits. He experimented with chemicals that could increase endurance, accelerate healing, and allow people to survive injuries that would normally be fatal. His discoveries attracted the attention of wealthy patrons who saw an opportunity to profit from them. Talbot eventually was hired to develop a drug that could improve the performance of soldiers and workers. He worked relentlessly, neglecting his own health in pursuit of his research. Then came the tragedy that changed his life. Talbot was involved in an accident that left him severely injured. His employers saw him as expendable and abandoned him rather than helping him recover. His work was taken from him, his research exploited, and Talbot was left broken. He became addicted to the very chemicals he spent years studying. His addiction consumed him, and his mind deteriorated along with his body. He began experimenting on himself, desperately trying to recreate the effects of his research. Eventually, Talbot became consumed, convinced that he could achieve something extraordinary if he pushed himself far enough. But his obsession destroyed him. Talbot eventually found himself wandering through the wilderness, physically and mentally ruined. His body had become dependent on the chemicals he consumed, and his mind was no longer capable of distinguishing from reality and hallucination. Then he encountered something strange, a mysterious substance known as the Blight. Talbot became fixated on it. He believed this could be the key to everything he had searched for. But the entity was already watching him. The fog claimed Talbot before he could escape his obsession and addiction. Within the realm, he became the Blight. His body was transformed by chemicals and the entity's influence. His skin became swollen and diseased. His body twisted into the substance coursing through him. The Blight is fueled by the very thing that destroyed his life. He injects himself with the mysterious compound, using it to power himself, to propel himself violently across the realm. The chemicals give him tremendous speed and strength, but they also continued to consume his body. Talbot Grimm spent his life searching for a way to surpass limitations of the human body. He found it, but instead of becoming greater than human, he became the Blight. Victor and Charlotte Deshays, the twins. Victor and Charlotte Deshays were born in 17th century France, during a time when superstition, poverty, and violence were widespread. They were twins, but their birth was far from ordinary. Victor was born severely deformed and attached to Charlotte's body. Their mother died during childbirth, and the twins were left in the care of their father. He was horrified by Victor's appearance and treated him like a monster rather than a child. Charlotte, however, became protective of her brother. Their father would eventually abandon them. Charlotte and Victor were left to survive on their own, moving from place to place and relying on one another. Charlotte became Victor's protector, carrying him, keeping him hidden from people who might hurt him. The twins eventually found themselves caught in the middle of a religious and political conflict. Their unusual appearance made them targets of superstition, and people believed Victor was some type of demon. Charlotte became increasingly distrustful of society. She knew that the world would never accept her brother. As they grew older, Charlotte and Victor eventually were taken by a group of traveling performers. For a short time, they experienced something resembling normal life, but their peace did not last. When the performers were attacked, Charlotte fought desperately to protect Victor. The violence left the twins traumatized and forced back into a life of wandering. Eventually, they became involved with a group of rebels to fight against ruling powers. Charlotte joined them, believing they could create a better world for herself and her brother. But the rebellion failed. Charlotte was captured. Victor was separated from her. For Charlotte, losing Victor was unbearable. She fought desperately to find him, eventually discovering that he had been taken by the same people who intended to use him for their own purposes. Charlotte tried to rescue her brother, but the experience left her increasingly consumed by fear and paranoia. She believed that everyone wanted to take Victor away from him. A fight ensued. Victor was injured beyond imaginable belief. As Victor lay dying, a fog rolled over them. Victor got up and ran into it, and Charlotte followed. The fog claimed both Charlotte and Victor, drawing them to its realm together. Within the entity, Charlotte became the twins, while Victor became the monstrous little creature that could separate from her body and hunt independently. Charlotte can release Victor to pursue survivors, allowing the twins to attack from two different places. Victor's unnatural strength and speed make him a dangerous predator, while Charlotte remains close by, protecting her brother. The relationship was always built around one thing: each other. Charlotte spent her entire life protecting Victor from a world that feared and rejected them. Now within the fog, the two are together forever, and anyone who tries to separate them becomes their prey. So, that was our stories. That was the 11 stories for today. We still have 22 more stories, so another 2 streams worth of stories. Gma! What do I want to play? Do I want to play Dead by Daylight to keep going with the theme? Or do I want to play something else? I'm going to pause the music. Do I want to keep playing Dead by Daylight to keep going with the theme, or do I want to play something else? Because I'm going to end this stream and start up a new one. Okay, so everybody, stay here. The stream is going to end. I will be right back. Dak, get in Discord with me. You're playing Dead by Daylight with me. So, we shall be right back. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back.